The Flow Morning Show, it's good to have your company, and we're taking a look at last night's federal budget. Ricky Lambert joining me to look at some of the losers in the budget, maybe some winners along the way too. Morning, Ricky.
Good morning.
And how did you go watching it last night? Were you just invigorated by Josh Frydenberg's delivery? I must say, I don't know that I can listen to him for very many minutes.
Well, there's an effort made in all budget speeches, whether it was Peter Costello or Josh Frydenberg and treasurers before that, Joe Hockey, to look very excited about the federal budget, to sniff the smelling salts and be really bullish about the economy and talk up the economy so that people will go out there and spend and business confident. Yeah, well, look, I couldn't get that excited myself.
No, the member for Kooyong is no Ron Barassi. Let's just say that. Look, the winners and losers, I don't think farming is a winner here at all. It didn't appear to be anything on agriculture that I could read into it. Regions, local community sport, even recreation initiatives. That's actually what you've written in your article at Flow News 24 this morning.
Yeah, there's some big shortfalls there. There's the national plan to have $100 billion in agriculture in the next 10 to 15 years with the National Farmers Federation, but they're not building the infrastructure for that to happen. And quite frankly, the commentary on this budget from the National Farmers Federation actually doesn't do any favours for people in our Flow family area. The focus from the federal government seems to be on Northern Australia, and even the National Farmers Federation very positive about what's happening in the north, in Queensland and the Northern Territory, and roads up there, but certainly in regional Victoria, not a great deal being spent on roads, and we've got these huge freight bottlenecks at the moment, but you're scratching around to find anything to help deal with that.
Well, one of them they have put money up for is the Truro bypass. It is a Sturt highway. It is a major route into regional northern Victoria and into the Riverina of New South Wales, between that and South Australia's Riverland and Barossa region. So that, I guess, is a small part of it. But I know that you've been investigating whether or not duplication of that part of the Sturt highway to remove trucking bottlenecks and a lot of road accidents that have claimed lives of many people through that terrible stretch that is Blanchetown back to Truro. It seems that that question is falling on deaf ears.
Well, it's all, and even Tony Passon, when I interviewed him about that, he said, maybe when I'm out of Parliament, that sort of thing might happen. It's all very slow going, and there's some money in this budget for planning to route freight, and it does look like rail is on the sideline here. They want to push it down the roads and to route the freight around through Sedan-Cambrai and come into Murray Bridge that way, or with the big trucks. So there's planning, but no shovel-ready projects at the moment. Even that Truro bypass, as Labor's Shadow Treasurer in South Australia has pointed out this morning, that's some way off. That's not going to happen for some years.
Okay, Building Better Regions, $250 million for the sixth round. But as you and I pointed out a week ago on this program, there are some very, very unusual projects that are being given funding for that particular Building Better Regions. It appears that you don't necessarily need to build something to make your region better. You can do a whole range of things, run an event, have a music festival or something, but apparently that is part of the infrastructure and this particular round of funding.
Well, I spoke with Catherine King, member for Ballarat and Shadow Minister for Regional Development, earlier this morning, and she was scathing of this fund and says that the Liberal and National parties have pork-barreled this fund. She says her electorate of Ballarat hasn't seen any funding from the Building Better Regions Fund for 8 years. So there is a lot of forensic work that needs to be done on exactly why projects are getting approved. Some of them are getting approved when the review body isn't even giving them a tick. The minister's going over the top and saying, no, I want that project funded. So we need to keep a very close eye on that Building Better Regions Fund.
Suddenly the federal government's become very concerned about its social responsibilities. It appears the winners here are aged care and NDIS and even health and education. Is the federal government planning for an election in order to defend its performance and its funding in what would be Labor heartland issues?
Well, I think that there is some sandbagging happening here because the Labor Minister, Catherine King, the Shadow Minister I spoke with earlier today, did say this is sort of trying to fix up the backlog in aged care, that funding that was needed for years. They're actually trying to catch up. The Royal Commission found that a lot of this aged care funding deficit has happened on the federal government's watch, and they're trying to clean this up. So I think there is a lot of sandbagging here to try and prevent lines of attack under traditional Labor areas, positive areas.
So $13.2 billion goes to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. I think all of us would agree that that has been a success. I think even Labor who say that it's their scheme that the coalition is undertaking, and there might be an element of truth to that, backing that. Apparently $1.5 billion for telehealth services, and in education $1.6 billion committed over 4 years, so that's $400 million a year for new funding agreement towards universal access to early childhood education. And in the defence and veterans areas, we do see a little bit of funding, additional $1 billion to be invested in ASIO intelligence functions. I think we all agree with that, that we do need to be looking at how we can protect ourselves from aggressive others who may even look to bring our digital services down. But also at the same time too, I think the Royal Commission into veteran suicides is also going to be something worth following through on.
Yeah, but that's got a $174 million price tag. You can start to see why the federal government was a little bit slow in ticking that one off, because that's a huge cost for that Royal Commission. And when you list through all of those, you might recall during the release of the Aged Care Royal Commission findings, there was a quick debate about whether there'd need to be a new tax to pay for these recommendations. $17 billion doesn't just fall out of the sky. It's got to be paid for somehow, and there are some serious macro issues. Australia's roaring along with its economy at the moment, but once we come back to the pack, if we get into a post-pandemic world, there's probably going to need to be some big new taxes to help pay for all of this.
I think there will be, to help pay the debt back too at some point in the future, albeit it's at a low interest rate, and that's the reason why Josh Frydenberg thinks the debt is okay. It's a funny coalition government that says that debt is okay. We'll follow through more on that particular very large issue with Ricky Lambert. Thanks, Ricky, from the Flow News 24 desk.